Got another top loader in today that somebody else tried to mod and it failed. Mostly it looks okay. He's got pin 21 lifted. Looks like it broke off at the edge of the chip and they had to file away some of the plastic to get to the pin again, which I've done before. I think I've even showed how I did it. And he's got his amplifier on a board, although it's strip board. I haven't gone through it yet to make sure the connections are correct, but I did go through the multi-out connector and they are to the right pin, except for he's only got one ground instead of both pins grounded. And this is what we get. So first thing I'm going to do is try to get that other ground pin grounded on there just to see if that makes a difference. I think what I'll do is just take one of these leads and attach it to ground. Nice and quick. Same thing. So that's not it. So probably what I want to do is look through his amplifier and make sure it's all connected right, or maybe just quickly solder on one of my amplifiers and test it. There's one other slightly quicker way to test that the board is okay. You've seen me do this plenty of times where I just hook up pin 21 from the PPU straight to a composite input. And if it's working, we'll get a nice dark image, but at least we'll know that it's working properly. And I do not. So that kind of leads me to believe that there is something wrong with the motherboard. The PPU has been damaged, or yeah, I get nothing. Well, let's get back to some basics here and just check power. 4.94 volts. That looks good. Okay, what about the capacitors? $1421.1 resistance. It's passable. 84.2, pretty normal, not great. 1000 nano, 0.05, perfect. 470 nano, 0.13, very passable. So the four caps are good. I'm really starting to believe that maybe the CPU or PPU has been damaged. Okay, so I've removed the PPU from the bad board and put it into my test board. And I just have power and ground going to the amp that was on the bad board, since it's still soldered to that barely accessible leg 21 on the PPU, and hooked up to the multi-out. There you go. That's pretty well proof positive that the PPU itself is bad. So what I'm going to do is desolder from the bad PPU onto the good PPU that I pulled from the test board. I think they did get this soldered to pin 21 pretty well, because I can pull on it fairly hard before it comes off. Although it's not out of the question. Something I might try real quick is just see if I can get a little bit more of that leg uncovered from the plastic, put a bunch of flux on it and try to resolder to it. Maybe it just had a real bad connection right there. Let's try that real quick. Okay, original bad PPU, resoldered the wire. Still bad signal. Okay. Get that wire off the bad PPU. Pull the bad PPU, install the known good PPU. Instead of soldering to that leg, I'm just going to clip it on. There we go. Working. Let's play the game a little bit here. All looks right. Audio is not hooked up, so we won't hear anything. I'd say we have a winner. I'd say the amp that the other person put together works fine. Okay, obviously lastly, when we put the good PPU into the board where the bad PPU was pulled from, and I'm garbled. So what we want to look for is a possible bad soldering spot, or maybe when the PPU was desoldered, a trace was broken, which is what that looks like actually. This is pretty common for, desoldering a PPU from the top loader board is pretty hard on the traces and the holes where the legs come through the board, because you can't get every little bit of solder, and sometimes there's a little bit of solder between the leg and the hole, and it sticks. So when you're pulling it, it kind of cracks, and sometimes you end up pulling the whole solder and connection and possibly break a trace. So we'll go over that again and make sure we're looking good under there. Okay, so I've got the CPU pulled from the bad board. First I'm going to test this new PPU, which is pulled from a completely separate project, but the one that was in here is now in the bad board. So working PPU and CPU in this board. So I'll pull the working CPU and install the CPU from the bad board. Appears to be fine. So this CPU is fine. So next I'll probably dive into the video and work RAM chips. Okay, so I got the two chips from the bad board, SRAM chips, and I've got two working ones on the test board. Put one into the work RAM. Yeah, look at that. We're already showing a bad one. It's possible that I pulled this one from the video, and then when you put it into the work RAM, then it gray screens it. And then we got a good one, the work RAM. So let's try to put the bad one in the video RAM and see if we can duplicate the scrambled video. There you go. So we had one bad RAM chip, video RAM. So we put a good one into the bad board. and hopefully we'll get this project finished up. Okay, so now we're all back together with the original board. Of course, now we've got a different PPU and one different RAM chip, and we're working. So I'm going to let this loop Super Mario Brothers for a while. So we got audio. Yep. I'm going to let this loop and contact the owner and see what he wants to do. I'm not real happy with the multi-out that was on here. I usually leave this ear on to mount it down to the circuit board with a screw. This side is always taken off just because of clearances with the heatsink. I could cut a hole for it on the rear panel like I do the other ones, but I would have to rely on soldering down the ground contacts and maybe putting some epoxy on it. But it could be done. The amp that was originally sent with the board seems to be working fine. I see no reason to replace it. There's not really a way to mount it down like I do with my circuit board, but again, hot glue or just wrap it in electrical tape and let it sit on the sides. I used to do that all the time with my old style doing it, but there you go, another one fixed, working.